Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something, well, it's actually kind of terrifying. We are putting a massive spotlight on the hidden, silent forces dictating the lives of millions. I'm talking about the perfectly engineered psychological triggers firing off every single time you click Add to Cart and rack up consumer debt. We like to think our spending habits are just, basic math and budgeting. But honestly, it's a lot more intense than that. You are up against a finely tuned machine. So let's unpack this source material and figure out exactly how we can break out of it.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked out of a store, or maybe closed out of a browser tab, carrying stuff you absolutely 100% did not need, and yet you felt this weird rush of accomplishment? Or maybe you've caught yourself rationalizing, I'll just put it on the credit card and worry about it later. Look, right out of the gate, I want to establish something super important. If you've done this, you're not alone. And more importantly, you haven't failed. Caving to these impulsive purchases isn't some personal flaw or a lack of discipline. As our source material lays out, you've just been successfully targeted.
See, that strange little rush of accomplishment you feel after checking out, that is exactly what a massive, multi-billion-dollar marketing apparatus wants you to feel. It's by design. We live in this highly developed consumer society, right? But what we almost always miss is the invisible architecture running the whole show behind the scenes. From those gigantic, brightly lit retail stores to the slickest, hyper-personalized ads on your feed, the whole entire system is a trap. It's built from the ground up to completely normalize the accumulation of consumer debt. They literally want you stuck in the trap, chasing that specific rush.
To put this into perspective, just consider this staggering number, 90%. According to the research we're unpacking today, 90% of society is kept trapped in a relentless paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. And guys, it's not because 9 out of 10 people are suddenly terrible at math. It's because they're caught up in these invisible psychological traps. When a system is carefully designed by a trillion-dollar industry to exploit human psychology, well, it's astonishingly effective at keeping the vast majority of us on an endless treadmill of earning and spending.
This completely flips how we need to look at commerce. We totally think we're just buying sneakers or a car or the newest phone. But what are these brands actually selling? They're completely bypassing our logic. They're selling you emotions. They're selling status. Honestly, they're selling you an idealized version of your future self. The marketing machine knows. They know for a fact that if they just sold you the bare-bones utility of a product, there's no way you'd go into debt for it. But if they can somehow convince you that buying this specific thing will transform you into a happier, cooler, more successful version of yourself, you're going to hand over that credit card every single time.
Section 1. The weapon. Dopamine and brain chemistry.
Okay, to really understand this trap, we have to look under the hood at the dark biological mechanisms at play here. Marketing departments aren't just out there making pretty pictures anymore. They're pouring vast resources into behavioral psychology. They've essentially weaponized our own biology against us. Specifically, they're targeting our dopamine. It's what we call the dopamine shopping loop, and it goes like this. Step 1. You see a targeted ad. They already know what you like, so just seeing the ad triggers a tiny chemical rush of dopamine in your brain. Step 2. You add it to your cart. Now the tension builds. The dopamine intensity ramps up because you're anticipating the reward. And then, step 3, you click purchase or you swipe the card. Boom, that's the high. And this climax is absolutely crucial because that chemical flood temporarily masks the very real financial anxiety you probably have about actually paying for the thing. The biology literally overwrites your logic.
So this whole dark reality is captured perfectly in this quote right from the text. Brands treat debt like a drug. I really want that to sink in for a second. The purchase high is being used as a literal weapon against the consumer. By hijacking your brain's reward center, the brand walks away with your money, and you are left holding the bag, which, in this case, is the debt. They're basically dealing a temporary fix, and they're using debt to make sure you can afford the hit.
Let's just slow down for a second, because this is the core transaction taking place. Instant gratification today versus monthly payments tomorrow. The brand hands you this fleeting, temporary fix right now. You feel amazing. But they defer the pain, the heavy weight, and the stark reality of that decision to tomorrow in the form of a looming monthly payment. It's this wildly lopsided trade where your current self gets a quick dopamine hit and your future self gets stuck with the financial burden.
Moving on to Section 2, the chains of normalization.
So, for this multi-billion-dollar machine to actually work on 90% of the population, it can't feel like a trap, right? It has to feel completely, totally ordinary.
Look at how this plays out in the real world with these specific modern credit schemes. You've got high-limit credit cards being practically handed out to college students. Effortless personal loans you can get approved for in literally 2 minutes on your phone. And of course, the massive, explosive rise of buy now, pay later schemes at just about every single online checkout. These aren't just available, they're aggressively pushed onto consumers, especially young adults, while masquerading as standard, totally safe, everyday financial tools. Their only real job? To remove every single point of friction between you and that dopamine purchase high.
And the result of all this is a pretty unsettling reality. We've completely normalized buying things we straight up do not have the money for, all to satisfy emotions we don't even really understand. Let me just repeat that. We are actually conditioned to spend money we do not possess to soothe or satisfy an emotional state, like status or that idealized future self that the brand artificially planted in us to begin with. It is a stunning, almost unbelievable loop of conditioning.
Section 3. The true cost. Psychological chains.
What does this normalized consumer debt actually look like in the life and future of an everyday buyer? Because it's not just some numbers on a bank statement. It's something way, way heavier. We are talking about finance liabilities, things like cars, designer clothing, luxury vacations. The source material is super clear on this distinction. Going into debt for liabilities like these is not leveraging a financial tool. Sure, wealthy individuals know how to use debt as a tool to build assets. But when everyday consumers finance a trip to Europe or a new wardrobe, they aren't building wealth. They're falling face first into the trap.
And that brings us to the central metaphor of this entire explainer, the psychological chain. Listen, every single time you lock your future self into another monthly payment for one of those liabilities, you are quite literally selling a piece of your long-term freedom for a temporary dopamine fix. You are chaining your future labor, your future time, and your future choices to a brand, all because they successfully hacked your brain chemistry for 5 minutes on a random Tuesday night.
Section 4. The escape, rewriting your script.
Now for the good news. You can rewrite your script. As the research points out, wealthy folks understand one fundamental truth. True wealth isn't just about what you own, it's about mastering your own mind and your own capital. Taking back control requires 3 explicit, deliberate actions to break free from these chains. Step 1, cultivate awareness. You now know the trap exists, you know exactly how the dopamine works. Step 2, pause before purchasing. You've got to break the momentum of that dopamine loop. Give your logical, rational brain time to catch up with your chemical brain. And step 3, change your financial identity. Look, breaking this cycle takes a lot more than just throwing together a strict spreadsheet or a budget. It requires a hard, intentional shift. You have to go from being a passive consumer to becoming an intentional owner of your future.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. The very next time you feel that urge to buy, ask yourself, are you buying the actual product or are you just buying the emotion that the brand is selling you? Honestly, mastering that single question is the absolute key to escaping the machine and finally reclaiming your future freedom. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.